Welcome. Today we're going to be discussing the technique Shield and Mace, a little bit of its history, its execution, some things that can go wrong in its execution, and how to fix or compensate for those things. So let's talk through the history of this technique. This technique is in Form 4. Unlike most of the other techniques in Form 4 that are also self-defense techniques, this technique was not created by pulling it out of Form 4. It was a technique prior to Form 4, it was put in Form 4 and then extracted once again, turning it into a self-defense technique, and some modern maneuvers were added to it. So let's talk through that history and the differences physically. So let's go onto this line. This is a straight right punch. You're starting from a non-ready position. You could start from a ready position, but that would require the person to really commit to their punch. So typically it's only done from a non-ready position. So if you'll notice the concept of what's going on here, the guy throws the punch, I'm trying to slip the punch, and then I'm trying to hit the opponent. Okay? The problem with that is two different ideas here. One is that I am slipping and not checking, and if you look at the form version, I would be slipping and rotating without a base. Okay, so you'll notice that there's three different ways to do this opening. One of which is the best way to do it for an offensive position in realism. So let's do the form version first. The form version tries to do this block and punch all at the same time. Obviously, I'm rotating without a base. I'm trying to do a block without a base, and I'm trying to land into the punch. That is the form version. You typically don't want to do that. If you look at some of the older videos, you'll see it's done slightly different. It is done where I'm doing the slip, I'm cocking my hands in, I'm doing the block and the rotation and the punch at the same time. That's a better version, but there's still a problem with that. If I step off to the side here, we're on the outside of the arm, and we have a general rule that says when we're on the outside of the arm, we want to stay at or above the elbow with our blocks and checks. We have no checks. So what's the problem there? The problem there is, as you saw, I'm exposing myself to this elbow. So the better way to do this is to pick up that check right away to make sure that the elbow isn't there. Pick up that other check, cock this hand into place, and then do the rotation and punch at the same time. So let's do that one more time so you can see it. So you may say there's timing differences. If you notice, it's 1, where I'm doing everything at the same time. 2, where I'm first landing and then doing the rotation, and then 3, 1, 2, 3. You would say there's timing gaps or differences between those three methods. The first two, yes. The second and third, no, because of the fact that I can get the parry and get the punch in 2. Keep in mind, my hands are doing the 1, 2, not my body in rotation, so I can short circuit that. So it's essentially 1, 2, 2, not 1, 2, 3, even though there's 3 motions, because this can count as 1, 1, 2. Okay? So now let's go from there. We've gotten to this piece, and now what we're going to be doing is doing this punch. The standard way to do this is with a straight punch. You might want to do it with a vertical punch, or you might want to do it with an uppercut. This is all based upon distance. Okay? We start palm up, we go to vertical, then we go to palm down. The form version does the standard punch. You may not want to do that based upon how far you are away from them. If you're really close, you're going to be stuck with an uppercut. If you're slightly farther away or a more comfortable distance, you want to do a vertical. And if you're farther away, you wouldn't want to do the straight. But there's an alternate way where you can get a combination of the two, where you actually hit with a vertical and then rotate through to the forward bow, so that, or forward horizontal punch. So you can take advantage of the rotation in order to injure your opponent slightly more through tearing. Okay? So keep that in mind. You could do it 1, 2, 3, or 4 different ways of doing it. Now, let's move on to the next. We've talked through all this stuff about checking. Now we're going to hit this opponent. Okay? There's a problem with this. I don't have a check in place again. So once I get to this, what we're doing is this is a study in checking. So we've gotten to this point, and now what we want to do is we basically want to be moving our hands and switching them so that we're keeping that check at all times. The problem that could arise here, now that we've solved that problem, is as I'm trying to do this strike from here, I'm coming out and around trying to hit more on a horizontal, or I'm trying to hit straight down. What you want to do here is you want to come down on a straight, and then you want to turn it on a diagonal so that you can catch on this hip and the kidney in there. Right? If my hand is straight, it has a tendency to come off. If I'm horizontal, that means I have to come and make a big circle. What I can do instead is contour the body, stay on it and turn to a diagonal, and then do the press down that way, okay? So that's what you're going to do, and then you're going to accentuate that with the drop. So all this is done at the same time. I'm leaving this out purposely, even though I told you that it's there, so that you can see what's going on here. So when you do that, it's all at the same time and dropping. That way you can also pick up a knee potential strike, or at least a check, so that you can cover up your groin a little bit more. So you're going from here to here. Okay, now, the next thing that we're going to be doing is the heel palm. We're going to change the line here so that you can see that. We've gotten to this point, so now what we're going to do is we want to get to this person's face, but notice what I had to do that. I had to come around their arm. So what we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of their natural reaction potentially by hitting. They might retract the elbow and then hit them, but we're not going to depend upon that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this arm, move it out of the way so that we can get to the face. Okay? So just keep that in mind, that they could drop their arm and you could do the hit, but we're not going to rely upon that. We're going to make sure it's pressed out of the way and then hit, because there's a general rule that says grab or check any loose extremities. This is now a loose extremity, and it's their major, it's their right side. So the best thing we can do is get that out of the way, because we really haven't done anything to this arm. All we've done now is punch them in the ribs and hit them in the kidney. So we want to make sure that we want to keep this right hand under control. So now, what's going to happen here is this hit. How you hit is important. This is not what we do with other techniques where we're trying to come up. This is coming on that circle because we want them to bend back, because we're going to be taking advantage of the lower end. So what we want to do is we want to hit up using fitting, which is the opposite of open-ended triangle, and open-ended triangle on us in order to fit on their extended jaw. So we're going to hit on this direction, not on a rotation circle. So if you'll notice what's happening here, my wrist is fused in this case. So what I want to do instead is I want to hit and then use a rotation at the end rather than the rotation all the way through. So we're going to hit and then rotate to get into the eyes as we continue that pattern. Okay? So as we do that, we're going to get to here, we're going to get them to lean back, do this claw, and then notice what's going to happen. I want to go low, but I had to move my hand again. So let's switch back around so you can see that. So I've gotten to here, and I want to hit here. But I'm back to my original position again. So we are adding a unique type of check here called a skip check. So what a skip check does, if I have the check, I remove the check and I put it back. And that lets my right hand get through safely without having to lose that check for a very long period of time. Okay, so from here, we want to do the skip check and we want to do this chop. Now there's a couple different ways to do this chop. One would be straight across to try and move the foot out of the way. You might be able to do that, you might not. What we want to do is we want to do a complementary angle. So we want to come down at that 45. So the idea is to make that knee bend so that I can expose that left leg to my kick, my follow-up weapon. So I could try and move this out of the way, but that's not really what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is demonstrate the idea of what I do with my foot, like with the reversing mace, I can now do with my hand, which is the opposite. Typically we do whatever I can do with my hands, I can do with my feet. Now we're doing whatever I can do with my feet, I can do with my hands. So we do this chop, expose that line like I said, and then we're going to take advantage of that kick. So that kick could be done also on a downward diagonal, but it's really hard since you're already down here. So it's typically done only at a very slight downward diagonal or horizontal. Okay, so let's walk through this really quick one more time. We want to pick up the checks, set, establish the base, turn the hit. You can do any one of these three hits that you want depending upon distance. We want to then pick up this check. If you notice, this is like the skip check at the beginning, only with the left and right. We're going to do it again here. Okay? So we've done the hit, or we've done the punch. We're going to pick up the check and we're going to drop this down. We don't want to come out and lose the contour. We're going to come down the contour and turn it in so that we're at that downward diagonal so that we can catch on to the hip area and kidney area as we pick up that check. We then want to move this hand out of the way. We're going to hit and then rotate. We're going to hit back on that 45, the left front flank, drop down, do the skip check, hit down at the 45 for taking advantage of that open-ended triangle using complementary angles, exposing the left leg, kicking that left leg out, and out we go. Okay? One more time, just slightly faster that you can see how it's executed. Up. Hope this video helps you. Thank you very much.